This is Dennis Ramundi. I'm here with my co-host, Philip Goldberg, author of American Veda. Our podcast, Spirit Matters, spiritmatterstalk.com, where we can be located. And our guest today, the Reverend Dr. Gwyn GBoard. She is the founder and president of the GBoard Center, Religion Inside and Out. The center has been created as the culmination of nearly 2 decades of working shoulder to shoulder with leaders of many faiths, and that is something Reverend GBoard has been focused on, reaching out to other faiths, having them work together. Thank you so much, Reverend, for taking the time to come on our podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a delight and a pleasure to be with both of you.
Gwyn, may I begin? I think our listeners would like to know something of your background and what brought you to the work you're doing today. When you were a girl, when you were young, did you did you aspire to be a religious leader?
No, as a matter of fact, it came later in my life, and it came as quite a surprise to me. I had originally been trained as a psychotherapist and worked for many, many years seeing individuals and families. Life unexpectedly took a real dramatic turn for me in 1992 when my youngest sister, and there's a 12-year difference between the two of us, was diagnosed with acute myelocytic leukemia. Cindy was diagnosed in February and died that September of the same year. We were extremely close despite our age difference, and I had both the blessing and also the heartache of being with her those months of her bone marrow transplant at the City of Hope in Duarte, California. She lived in the state of Michigan and was brought out to the West Coast, principally because I was living here and still continue to live in Los Angeles. So I was with Cindy during those months and also had the privilege of being with her when she died, which had a profound experience on me. It was shortly thereafter Cindy's death that there were a series of things that occurred to me in a relatively rapid period of time that the end result was that I had a very strong calling to the ministry. And one of the things that happened was the morning that Cindy died, when I came back to the house, Cindy had converted as an adult to Judaism, was a very devout Jew, as had my father. I was so exhausted from having been with her for several days, being awake with her at her bedside, came back to my home in Los Angeles and just had to lie down before I started to make arrangements to return her remains to the state of Michigan and prepare for her funeral service. And she came to me, her spirit. I saw her, and she was fully restored to health in like a spirit-like presence. And it was about, I would say, a couple of weeks after that began what I've lovingly referred to as the voice. And every morning I would be awakened at 3 o'clock in the morning, and with a voice that would say to me, the presence would say to me, now that this has been revealed to you, I'm asking you to be in my service.
Wow.
I was so shocked by it. And for a while, frankly, I thought I was having a nervous breakdown. You know, it is said of people where there is a significant loss that you're dying of a broken heart. My chest hurt so badly from grief that there were times that I could hardly take a breath. And I had spent many, many countless nights, had not told anyone of these two experiences because I thought I was tired. I was trained as a psychologist, so there was enough of a scientific background in me to think that this had not happened. I had created this out of my grief. After many, many nights of the voice coming to me at exactly 3 o'clock every morning, and the first week or so I was terrified. I will never forget that it was a Thursday morning. I woke up, was getting ready to go into the office to see patients, and I started to weep. And what I said out loud was, all my life, God, I have told you that I love you. I have had a privileged life. You've given me parents who loved me and educated me. You have given me a beautiful life. And if you're wanting this one thing from me, I had better show up and do the work. I was concerned that my relationship with God would be damaged in some way by me, not by God. And within a few months' time, I was in seminary in my late 40s. And I was terrified because of the amount of work, having not been in school for many, many, many years. And they were wonderful years. And that's how that came about. And it was, again, it was completely unexpected by me. Right. And I have had the time of my life doing the work that I do. Now, I'm ordained as an Episcopal priest in the Diocese of Los Angeles. My background is that my mother was a Southern Baptist. My father was born Roman Catholic. We were reared in the United Methodist Church. And when I was an adult, my father converted to Judaism, and my sister who died converted to Judaism. So I think in some ways, I have come to the interfaith movement out of sheer self-defense.
Right. Every family gathering is a interfaith celebration. Gwen, yes. I'm wondering, when you went into the Episcopal ministry, having had this experience, did you share that experience with them? And if so, what was their reaction to it? And how have you used that experience to counsel and teach and minister to others?
You know, frankly, I don't remember if I shared it or not. I just knew that I had always really been drawn to the Episcopal Church because of its liturgy, which I love. What I would refer to in a high Episcopalian. I love the incense and the bells and the asperging and all of that. I was very, very. This incident has been written up in a couple of books. I have talked about it publicly. I think that, and what I have learned in sharing the experience is that this kind of thing is not all that uncommon.
Right.
That people who come into what I would call a formal religious life, meaning being an imam or a swami or any number of priest, a minister, has often comes about from there being a tragedy in one's life and of finding the holy in the tragedy. I think it's very safe for me to say with great integrity that had Cindy not died and had I not had the experience of seeing her well after death and of having the calling from the voice, I never would have gone into becoming a priest or a minister. It wouldn't have happened. And I think it speaks something of attempting to live out one's integrity in one's personal experience with the holy, however we refer to the holy. And and it's been my gift back to Cindy to live this life and to be fully committed to the work that I do.
I'm guessing that at the time you made this radical commitment, your colleagues in the psychotherapy community probably thought you needed help.
Well, I think more to the point, Dennis, was not that as much as you're already in service as a therapist. Why would you want to go back to school? Why would you do that to that? So, because, as I said, this happened in my mid to late 40s. It was a tremendous expense to go back to school that I hadn't counted on. It was another 3 years of schooling. And so I think it was more that than you really are having a nervous breakdown.
Right.
Because I came to the belief that what I saw with my sister's, I'm going to refer to spirit, and the experience of the voice, I came to the belief that both were real.
Mm-hmm.
They were both real and both intentional upon my life. And it's just been a tremendous blessing in my life. And there isn't a day that I don't miss my sister. There isn't a day that I don't miss her. So I think it's more to that, Dennis, than people thinking, oh, my God, you're really going over the edge here.
Gwen, you became an Episcopal. You are an Episcopal minister. You have family members that are Jewish. You've dealt with all religions. Was it important to you that you became a Christian minister? Could you have gone in other directions to other religions, or are you of a very firm belief that to you religion is Christ-centric, and that all should come to that?
No, as a matter of fact, I was born into a Christian family.
Mm-hmm.
My father converted to Judaism, as did my youngest sister. I could have been born in any other place in the world and been born into a Muslim family or a Jewish family, all here in North America and also other parts of the world, or become Hindu or Buddhist or Sikh or Jain or Baha'i or any of the other Brahma Kumaris, any of the other Jain, any of the world's great religions or faiths. I think that to believe that Christ is the only way, and to believe that people have to be brought to Christ is a form of violence in the world. And historically has caused great loss and tragedy to countless cultures and people of other faiths who have lost language and culture and land through this notion that Jesus Christ is the only way. I love the living example of Jesus, and I attempt to live my life by what he taught, how he taught other people to be, which is not dissimilar from the world's religions,
Right.
which is to be loving and compassionate. So, I think there are many roads to the divine, and this is the road that I have chosen, simply because I was born into it, and I do love the way that Jesus lived his life, which I think was very noble and profoundly faithful, but not uncommon to the Buddha or any of the great gurus or any of the great swamis. It's not uncommon. There are similar threads that go through all of it, very similar threads.
When that sentiment that you just articulated is probably what led you to work in what you call interreligious bridge building, first for the diocese as officer of ecumenical and interreligious concerns, and then when you started the GBoard Center. I assume that is correct. Can you maybe describe what your goal is and the purpose, why you started the GBoard Center instead of continuing with the diocese?
Well, there were a series, at the same time that I was officer for ecumenical and religious concerns for the Diocese of Los Angeles, I was consultant for interfaith relations for the entire Episcopal Church in the United States.
Mm.
As it happened, both of those positions ended at the same time. I was not ready to retire. I had, particularly with the position of officer of a consultant for interfaith relations for the Episcopal of the Episcopal Church in the United States, had a tremendous amount of international travel and experience. So I had developed wonderful relationships with people of many faiths all over the world. And when these positions ended concurrently, one, it was time for the Episcopal Church of the United States was going in a different direction, and the job with the Diocese of LA, many jobs were cut as a result of financial constraints. This was about, I guess, 7 years ago, because the GBoard Center will be in its 6th year as of February of 2016. And so I thought, there is much work that needs to be done. There's tremendous work that needs to be done, joyful work that needs to be done. I'm going to begin my own 501c3 nonprofit and continue this work in the greater LA area. And we do know, because everything that the GBoard Center does, everything, is filmed by an award-winning filmmaker, edited, and put up on the website, and we know that people all over the world are logging into the website to get the educational materials that are on the website from the GBoard Center. And so the work is spinning out. It's becoming more and more powerful. One of the things that I learned in working with the Muslim community, not only nationally, but also in the greater LA area, that has moved me deeply and been very pivotal in my thinking, is that as we all have seen hundreds of photographs or have been in worship space of a mosque where Muslims pray shoulder to shoulder, men in front, women behind. And I learned that Muslims pray shoulder to shoulder so as not to allow that which is untrue or evil or of mystification or demonization to get in between them during that sacred time of prayer.
Mm.
So I think that as people of faith, we have a responsibility, the ability to respond to the mythologies and the mystifications and the demonizations that are out there about other people of faith or religion, and stand shoulder to shoulder with our brothers and sisters and educate one another as to what we're all about, rather than living in the darkness of untruths about one another.
Okay. Gwen, let me ask you a fundamental question in regard to religion. And you've mentioned different groups coming and praying. You're a reverend. You're an ordained minister. Somebody comes to you and maybe they have very little experience with religion, but they feel they want to have some connection. And they've heard about prayer, but they don't really completely understand what prayer is. How would you define prayer? If somebody comes to you and said, I would like to start praying, Reverend, what do I do? What steps do I take? Give me some insights into that. But how would you respond to them?
Well, the initial thing that I would say to anyone who came to me with that wonderful request is, you may not realizing, but you're already praying.
Huh.
You may not realizing, but you're already praying. There are formal prayers, and all faiths and religions have different prayer books that one can turn to during certain times of the day to pray. Or if you're you see something beautiful, a sunset or a sunrise, and you look at it and you say, that is really beautiful. That's a form of prayer. If you smile at another human being, that's a form of prayer. Anytime goodness and kindness is returned or put forth out into the world as an energy, it is a form of prayer. And so I would say, you can meditate. That's a form of prayer. Light a candle. Pray the rosary if you're Christian. Give thanks for what you have. Wake up each morning with an attitude of gratefulness on your lips for your health, your well-being, for the well-being of other people. Remember others as you go throughout your day who are having difficulties. There is not a right way to pray. There is not a correct way to pray. And I think that people come to that discipline by their own road, their own vehicle for getting people. For some people, it's very, very disciplined. And for other people, it's how one additionally behaves in the world of being kind and showing gratitude and showing compassion.
Interesting. Gwen,
Thank you.
The name of the GBoard Center is the GBoard Center Religion Inside Out,
Yes.
which I always thought was a great branding. Can you explain to people what you mean by religion inside out and how you came to use it?
Well, thank you. Recently, I've put a word in front of religion inside out, and it's the GBoard Center -turning religion inside out.
Ah, interesting.
Right, and by that, and this was all very carefully, I brought together a very small group of 4 to 5 people in conceptualizing the GBoard Center and coming up with a mission statement that has remained intact. And the mission statement is to bring people together, to challenge assumptions, unleash the holy, and affirm the faith that transforms the world. And that is turning religion inside out. It's about, let's go deeper with each other. Let's be with one another. That's turning religion inside out. I can read a book about Hinduism or Sikhism or in many of the different Buddhisms, but it's not the same experience of being with a Hindu or a Sikh or a Buddhist or any of the other great religions or faiths in their worship experience. So one of the programs that I have I call it like a 3-tiered programmatic thing that we do with the GBoard Center. One is I bring in great speakers. Phil Goldberg has been one. It was a wonderful gathering. The other is what I call kind of like a 101 series. We began with bringing in a Swami, and then a Buddhist monk, and then a venerable, and then a rabbi, and so forth and so on, talking for a couple of hours about the very basics of Hinduism or Judaism or any of the isms. That went on for 2 years, and then the next 2 years we did sacred texts and sacred places. Went to the Vedanta Society, and Swami, and here the head abbot is Swami Sarvadevananda, talked about the Upanishads. Went to the Buddhist Shilai Temple in Hacienda Heights. Venerable Miyoshi talked about the Lotus Sutras. So it was getting people in the experience of being in a temple or a masjid or all of the other Gurdwara, etc. Now what we've done last year and this year, and we'll carry it out next year, is to go back to those same places. And what we're doing now is decoding rituals and symbols. Why do you do what you do when you worship? or celebrate? What are the mechanisms of what you do, and what does it translate to? And that's turning religion inside out. The other thing that we do with that is, we ask people to RSVP because there's always hospitality wherever we go, and places have been just fantastic in providing hospitality wherever we go. Just very, very gracious and generous. Is that when we send out a confirmation of their RSVP, we tell people what the protocol is. When you go into a Gurdwara, you will be given a head covering, men and women. Men will sit to the right. Women will sit to the left. You will be asked to sit on the floor. You will take your shoes off before you go into the Gurdwara. You will, women, please dress appropriately, no shorts, no short sleeves. And what is the proper greeting? So when we do this, and we go into a Buddhist temple or a Jewish synagogue or wherever we go, first of all, the people to whom we're going feel very well taken care of, because we've taken the time to tell people what the appropriate behavior is and why, and then we give them the experience. That is turning religion inside out. And what I'm finding is that now that we're moving into our 6th year, the numbers are increasing as we do these different programs.
Well, that's good to
hear. The other thing that we do that I'm very proud about is, as I said, everything is filmed. Put up, and sometimes we'll have 3 cameras. It's very expensive. Everything is free. If you'd like to make a goodwill offering or donation, it's accepted with gratitude. I don't want to charge because I want everyone to have an equal opportunity to get these wonderful, wonderful programs that we do.
Great. Gwen, I wanted to ask you, one thing I'm very impressed with, I didn't know this before the interview today, is that you came into the ministry later in your life. I think you said you were in your 40s. And I'm thinking maybe there's some folks out there listening to this podcast thinking, maybe it's not too late for me. Maybe this is something I want to do. I'd like you to give maybe one experience you had. I'm sure you've had many, when you thought to yourself, thank God I became a minister. What a fulfilling job this is.
Well, you're right, Dennis. There have been so many extraordinary experiences. One experience was I had a friend who was visiting from Chicago, and went when we did sacred texts and sacred places to the Sikh Gurdwara, and he had just a wonderful experience. Went back to Chicago, was in Starbucks, and the fellow behind him in the line was clearly a Sikh, had a turban on, and my friend turned to him and said, "Satnam." And the man was so impressed by that. He said, "How do you know how to greet me? And how did you know that I was a Sikh?" And my friend told him about his experience of coming out to California and going to the Sikh Gurdwara in Pacoima. They meet for coffee regularly.
Wow.
And that was over 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
And so what we're doing, what moves me about this is that we're creating community beyond one's own community. That's what I think is so important, is that so that when different things have happened untoward of another religious or faith community, we all show up. We show up to stand in solidarity with that community. And so I think that we're becoming a better people, a more compassionate people, a more a kinder people. by doing this work. One of the other things that moved me so profoundly deeply, I did a 10-year anniversary of 9/11, and oh my God, there were hundreds of people there. The other thing,
I was one of them.
Were you?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, you're going to know about this experience then. The other thing that the GBoard Center does not do is we don't politicize anything. There are people who are activists about this work. I don't go down that road. I think that road is important, and I think both are important to the interfaith work or ecumenical work. I don't go down that road. I'm more interested in creating the experience and educating. So the 10-year anniversary of 9/11, there were no flags, there were no political speeches, there were no God Bless America kind of thing. And at the opening of the ceremony, and I had people of every faith that could be there, and I had children involved too. It was what I thought was a very rich liturgy. I love writing liturgy for these kinds of things. I opened it by saying, on September 11, 2001, when innocence fell from the sky, people from many lands, having many faiths, called upon God using many names. Today, we honor them and we recognize them, something like that. So I had different faith community give a reading about tragedy from their sacred text in the language and then translate it, and then a reading from their sacred text about hope. The title of it was Finding Hope in the Holy. At the end, I gave each child there a plaque with a little pine tree to be planted at their particular faith community, acknowledging the 10-year anniversary with a pledge to the children that we would honor the future for them. I had all these religious leaders at St. John's Cathedral up on a platform, and I concluded it with Aaron Copland's Fanfare for the Common Man.
Mm-hmm.
People were sobbing. And when we ended it, people did not want to leave. I don't know if you had that experience.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, people did not want to leave. And it was about, we are in this together. There's no blaming. There's no, there was loss for a lot of people it wasn't just Americans, and it wasn't just Christians.
Right.
Okay. So that was a very moving experience. And then I had different religious leaders take the hand of a child for the recessional out and walk out. People didn't want to leave the nave of the church. And and there have been many, many, many experiences like that.
Yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful day. Gwyn, according to polls, the fastest growing demographic in religious life in America is the so-called nuns, as in none of the above, or spiritual but not religious. People, especially young people, more and more frequently do not want to be identified or self-identify with any of the traditional religions. Have you found that, and does the GBoard Center acknowledge that cohort and attempt in any way to accommodate them?
We have not done that. That is one of the things that I'm looking at doing in 2016 is I want to bring on another staff person. As a matter of fact, I have an interview tomorrow morning to bring on a staff person with a specific job of developing a youth advisory council. And it can be like kids in elementary school and junior high and young people in working on their bachelor's degrees.
Right down the road at USC, you'll find an
right down the road.
Right.
Yes. Yes, indeed. And we have relationships with USC. We also have relationships with Mount St. Mary's University, which is up the other road on West Adams.
Right.
So I think I can address it that way. I think that there's a lot of disillusionment right now with younger people. I do expect that to turn around. Maybe not in my lifetime. I think that our current pontiff, the Holy Father, Pope Francis, is a magnet for young people, a visible magnet for young people. This is a man who truly, truly walks the talk as a man of faith, not as a Christian per se, but as a man of faith. And I think that if we can get more people who are willing to be out there and to share the joy of working together and all the wonderful things that can be learned about culture and religion and the whole language, everything, it can be a very, very exciting time. So I haven't addressed it yet specifically, but I think I will be addressing it non-specifically through developing a young people's advisory council.
Well, Gwen, thank you so very much for your time today. And I would love to have you back on, as I'm sure Phil would as well, because there's many more things I'd like to ask. And I encourage you to keep doing the great work that you're doing.
Well, bless you, and bless you for what you're doing. This is great. And again, I'm deeply honored to be both of you, and so grateful for this wonderful, wonderful time together. It's been joyful for me. Great. So
thanks, Gwen.
Right. You're welcome.
Your work is much appreciated.
Thank you very, very much.
Take care.
Bless you both.
Thank you. Dennis Ramundi and Phil Goldberg, our guests today, the Reverend Dr. Gwen GBoard. Spirit Matters Talk, spiritmatterstalk.com. Thank you.
Thank you.